Hello, my name is Teresa Chickwitz, and I'm honored to be here representing Betrayal Project USA. We are a victim-led organization dedicated to exposing institutional betrayal, honoring those that we've lost, and pursuing justice for crimes committed under the guise of public health and COVID-19. You can learn more about our work, view other victim stories, submit your own story, and get involved by visiting our website, betrayalprojectusa.org. Again, that's betrayalprojectusa.org. You can follow us on Rumble, BitChute, X, and by searching Betrayal Project USA or going to our website and linking to our social media as well. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with both Amber and Braden Davis, who lost their mother, Jodi Dexter, to the deadly hospital protocols in the state of Nebraska. Amber and Braden, thank you so much for being here, and especially for having the courage in sharing the story of your mom, Jodi. Again, very sorry to hear about this. This is tragic. Let us take a step back. Let's start from the beginning and tell us a little bit about your mom. I would love everybody to know a little bit about her story and who she was.
My mom loved Jesus. She deeply committed herself to Jesus when she was 18 and spent her whole life just telling people about him. All of my childhood memories are just surrounded by the Bible, church. We listened to Joni and Friends, all kinds of inspiring just things that shaped me into the stay-at-home homeschool mom that I am. And I absolutely credit her, with shaping me into who I am. She, in her later years, helped fund an orphanage in Uganda and took 2 trips there, taking shoes and supplies and Bibles. She had contacts in Kenya that she was helping, that they took hundreds of Bibles and were just, anytime that she was with someone, she was telling them about Jesus. Random strangers on planes, people at the gas station, just everybody. So that's mainly who my mother was.
Wow. She sounds like she was just a ray of sunshine, a breath of fresh air, and a light to this world, bringing joy to so many, and especially the gift of faith, which we need so desperately in this world. And it's tragic of what happened to her. So tell me if you can now tell me a little bit about the scenario leading up into about the 2020, 2021 time period. What was going on in her life, and what were the events that led up to the hospital? If you can just kind of back up about how did that happen?
Well, she was a big Trump supporter and a big just ally for conservatism. And unfortunately, her last year was kind of in tumult because her views politically didn't align with those of her husband's family, and it had caused problems. And so, frankly, her last days were not well spent. My stepfather was recovering from a surgery, and they had got a respiratory illness, both of them. And so she had been sick previously the month before, and she had just gotten back out and about, and she was delivering a sofa to a friend in Oklahoma, actually, when she contracted COVID. And then she was sick for a little over a week before she went to the hospital. So
Did I understand that you had mentioned she was a Trump supporter? So was she aware of some of the things that were happening in the public during that point in time with COVID, and was she aware of that?
Absolutely, yeah. And she was advocating for the hot topic words, ivermectin, that kind of a thing. She was shying away from medical stuff. She'd been going on a more natural path. We have been more natural for years, and have been encouraging her to, do things like that. So yeah, she was very much.
So.
And it sounds like, just in hearing you talk a bit, it sounds like she had some sort of an idea about if she got sick, what her strategy was going to be. Did she relay with that strategy to you, of how she thought that she would manage COVID and her intention for it?
Yes. The day that she was admitted into the hospital, she had sent out a group text to my sisters, my brother, my grandparents, and my stepdad, all of us, saying she's in the hospital, but she didn't want to be intubated.
Vehemently opposed.
On a more personal note, unfortunately, my mother was bulimic for years, and she struggled with that. And the thought of being intubated was very horrible for her. And so she made it clear that's what she did not want, no matter what. And unfortunately, that's not how it went.
So was she the one that admitted herself to the hospital, or did somebody take her there? How did that transpire?
Well, yeah, actually, my sister had been there that Thursday. My sister had brought her up a soup and some lick with some drinks and was tending to her. My sister was with her Thursday night. My sister left, I think, about 7 p.m. And then somewhere around 1 p.m., my stepdad called the ambulance and had her taken to St. Francis Hospital in Grand Island, which is a hospital that if you knew her at all, then you knew that she did not like that hospital and would have chosen to go anywhere but that hospital. And it still upsets me to this day that that's where she ended up.
Yeah, and I mean, since I was the only one that really stayed with her overnight, the hospital would allow one person to stay with her overnight, and so her family actually all had COVID. Her sister had COVID. Her grandparents had COVID. There was really nobody else to stay there for, so I stayed there overnight, and so I kind of got some inside baseball on kind of what was really happening and kind of how she was dealing with the COVID before she got to the hospital. And I mean, it was her and her husband were not having a good time. They were both sick and they were stuck in a house together and they were arguing a bunch. And he was threatening to leave her and take, it's had said that he had opened up a bank account and an IRA in his name without her on it. And he was planning on basically just kind of being done with her. And so when he took her to the hospital that she didn't want to, it just seemed really poignant to us. And it seemed like it was on purpose.
Yeah, we've seen that quite a lot, where a lot of the families were quite divided. Even to this day, we see other family members trying to force their hand in the medical decisions of their loved one, even though the loved one had clear intentions. We see that very often, very often. Why was it, do you think, that this particular hospital, what was it about? How do what did your mom think about that hospital? What did she say about it?
Well, she didn't like that hospital because when we lived a few minutes outside of that town when I was younger. That's where my parents owned a house at. And when I had broke my arm, um, they treated me terribly. Anyways, and my sister had pneumonia, and they caused my sister a lot of pain. And she had just seen a lot of inappropriate care from that hospital. And she was involved in the home healthcare system there for a while. She would help the elderly, and she just saw nothing good from that hospital. And that's her opinion, and she's allowed to have that. We're not trying to defame anything or anything. That was just her beliefs and her experiences. So,
and the hospital, as of recently around this time, had taken a really hard stance towards the LGBTQ community, and it had gone really woke. So
she didn't like that either, but that wasn't she hadn't liked
that was just annoying.
So it sounds like they were playing into part of the agenda that was being rolled down. Like almost there was a plan. They were following some sort of orchestrated plan, it sounds like. Yeah. What did your mom think? Did she ever communicate how she would, if she got sick, what she would take to try to get over COVID? Did she hear about anything, any medications that would help her, or help, that she intended to take?
She actually did have the hydrochloroquine. She had gone to her doctor and they got a bottle of hydrochloroquine. We don't really know exactly what happened with that. Afterwards, we saw that the bottle was still at her house and there wasn't anything taken out of it. So I don't know if her husband wasn't giving her the hydrochloroquine like he said he was, or that was an extra bottle or something. But that was one thing that was just really suspicious and annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So she was taken by ambulance into the hospital that she didn't want to go because she was hearing stories of people and also her own experience of mistreatment already, and now she's being almost forced to go to this hospital that she didn't want to go to anyway in the first place. At that point, and it sounds like they were not allowing visitors. Is that right? Were you allowed there with her, or she was by herself?
She was allowed one visitor, but we were the only ones allowed because everyone else was testing positive for COVID at the time, and they had COVID.
At the time, they allowed visitors, but it was like one person could go back at a time or something like that. And then overnight,
you had to wear the N95 mask and all of that stuff.
Yeah, mask up and have a whole suit and the whole big caboodle.
Wow.
But then I could stay overnight, so they allowed one person to come in and stay overnight.
Did you have to leave at any points of the day? Did they just say 2 hours, or were you there? Were you able to stay the whole time?
They allowed us to have one person with her at all times.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good. In your course of staying with her, can you tell us a little bit about the experience in the hospital? Meaning, did you get a sense did you have any sort of sense of what was happening when you entered, and did you see anything that was just strange to you?
Okay, so I guess kind of the weirdest thing was just how the precautions, how they were so strict about everything, but then there was just so much cross-contamination. Like, you can't not have cross-contamination. Like, it was almost ridiculous. It was like to the point where, I mean, it's like they touch somebody with they touch the patient, talk to the patient or something, and then they like lift up the mask and like scratch their face or something. I mean, like, it was just, you could see the blatant hypocrisy in everything that they do. I mean, like, they walk on the floors, but nobody's wearing booties. So they're walking into this room where a person could be coughing and then walking throughout the hospital. I mean, like, it's just, they were acting like they could contain something that they clearly knew they couldn't contain. So all the protocols and all the masks and all the sort of stuff,
it was just inhibiting people breathing. It was inhibiting things.
It just seemed like
none of it made any sense. And when we were in her hospital room, we just took the masks off and faced away from the nurses anyways.
And I got COVID, but it was months later. So I never even got COVID from being around
we never got COVID
for 5 days. Nobody in our family got COVID for like several months afterwards. And then we got it.
So that you were in there with her. So did they come in and tell you exactly what they were going to do to treat her, or what plan did they kind of come up with that they told you of how they're going to try to beat this?
They had her on.
There was no plan. They just, and that was the problem. They wouldn't even. That was the problem. Is that, and then as soon as they intubated her, I knew she was gone for, because that next day when I was talking to the nurse, I asked, "Well, what's next?" And she's just like, "Well, we hope she wakes up." And I was just like, what? So I thought the intubation was like some kind of you had to intubate to help heal, or there was, I don't know. I was so like shocked, and I'm not a nurse and I'm not a medical anything. And so I just was listening to them too, but they didn't seem to have any idea. And they weren't telling her even before the intubation. They weren't listening to her anyways. We were sneaking her in gummies with vitamin C and just healthy things and stuff like that.
Sneaking
because the food that they were giving her was nutritionless. The food was, and she couldn't even eat half of it. And it was so laughable that all of the care was laughable.
We made soup and all these sort of things, and it was just like there was literally no nutritional thought whatsoever for this patient.
As the care family there, helping her to make the decisions, were you able? Did they come in and tell you, "Hey, we're going to go intubate you, and here are the risks"? Did they walk you through all the risks of intubation?
We were kind of sidelined from any medical decisions. Like probably about like the third day in, her husband got good enough that he could show up, and they let him see her and stuff. But we weren't really consulted. They weren't telling us. I would find out what she was taking when I showed up there at night, and she'd be like, "This is what we're on," and then we'd look at the packets and we'd be like, we try to give her Ativan. And it's like, well, it said right here in the thing that it could, lower your respiratory rate, so I probably shouldn't take that. And so there's just a lot of different things like that I'd hear from her, but we didn't have the legal standing. It was all on her husband.
So they just totally disregarded that you were in the room, and they just were going to do what they were going to do. It sounds like that they really didn't consult you. Did they tell you what happens when they put people on ventilators? Did they tell you what happens, like what medications follow, and also the fact that usually they mark people's records as do not resuscitate when they put people on ventilators. Do they communicate any of that with you?
A little bit. They talked about the DNR and they tried to, they definitely pushed that. But no, they didn't. In fact, anytime I would ask about the intubation, they would not answer any of my questions, and they were very unclear about it.
Yeah. At what point did you decide, man, she's not getting better? And I know you talked about, you guys had a different idea of the treatment that you wanted for your mom. Can you talk a little bit about that? And at what point did that come into play?
Well, her oxygen was dipping down into like 84 in the 80s and stuff like that on that Thursday before they intubated her. And she was just really struggling a lot. And she wanted to get out. She wanted to get out and she wanted to just die on her own accord. If that's what was going to happen, that's what she said. She wanted to, because they wouldn't allow children in the hospital. She had 12 grandchildren at the time. She was the most involved grandma ever, and
she was the greatest grandma.
So she told me to call my sister, and because my sister knew this doctor and the doctor that had been treating my mother, because my sister used to live in the same town. Anyway, so she wanted my sister to call and get an oxygen machine for just to rent one. You know what I mean? Get her an oxygen machine, prescription, sent so she could go home. She wanted to leave on Saturday. She was going to give him one more day, and then she wanted to check out Saturday, say goodbye to her grandkids, and then that was maybe live, maybe not, but it would have been on her own accord. And then that was completely taken away when my stepfather came in and just said, nope, let's intubate. So.
Yeah. And you probably didn't, I don't know, did you hear the conversation between the doctor and your stepfather at that time? There's big incentives that happen in the hospital for putting people on ventilators. And especially if people died in the hospital on a ventilator, there's extra bonuses, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And she's an organ donor also. So.
Wow. So there was a lot of
changed her mind about, but she hadn't got it changed on her license. And so anyways, yeah.
So it's everything that you mentioned is very interesting, because we've heard this time and time again with many of the stories, very similar. The ventilator was the protocol that they were going to use. Did you ever find out what kind of medication she was given while she was on the ventilator?
She was given remdesivir. For sure. Yes.
Yeah. And they never told her family, meaning you in the room, that remdesivir kills over 53% of people in the Ebola trial. They didn't tell you that.
Absolutely not.
Okay. So they just
when Amber suggested vitamin C, and they laughed at her to her face, that there was no other, like, remdesivir is the only drug you can give to COVID. There's no other.
It was the only one.
Like, there's no other viral drugs. The only viral drug that exists is remdesivir, and you have to take this. Otherwise, you don't take anything and you die.
It's the only one that works for COVID. That's.
What did you ask for any other types of medications to the doctor? How did that go?
Yes, I directly that Thursday, my mother was very frustrated that they weren't doing more to help her, and that whatever they were giving her wasn't helping. And so I suggested multiple different things, and he wouldn't even basically talk to me and just laughed at me, literally laughed at me, and that was it. I mean, he wouldn't even, he just walked away. He straight up just left the room. So I was so rude and uncalled for. Yeah.
So basically we could say he was trying to gaslight you, pretending like you don't know as much as him. You're an idiot, to say for asking for these these medications.
I'm a crazy hippie. Yep.
And then less than 24 hours later, she's intubated.
Yep.
And to leave the room for refusing to communicate with you at that point, when you're asking a very valid question. My loved one is on a ventilator. Why are you not giving her life-saving treatment, but you're giving her on a ventilator where you know that the odds are very low? Wow, it's just a catastrophe. So she was on the ventilator, and how long was she in that state for?
1 week. Wow. 1 week, and then basically they just decided to pull the plug.
Yeah.
So
they just said that she's declining, and did they make the decision? Your stepdad made that decision, or
they didn't really say she was declining. They just wanted to get it over with. That was literally, I mean, like
she's not getting
there's
any
no
better.
point.
There's no point.
Yeah, they just said she wasn't declining though. Nothing had happened. She was just there
in stasis.
And my stepdad was just done, and that's literally what they said.
Wow. It's very interesting to hear you say that, and to hear the number of days that she was in the hospital, because a lot of the statistics, if you look at them after the 14th day in the hospital received a great bonus for up to 14 days. And then after 14 days, they lose, it starts to slide down if you look at that. So
Really?
it's very surprising, not surprising, I should say, but it's very interesting to hear.
But it's not.
Yeah, it's very, it's unfortunate to hear it, because we've heard so many of the same stories where, people were pressured to get out of their bed, to give up the machines that they were on, to get off the ventilator. Somebody else needs it, as if their life had no value, as if, you were just another number in the system to be treated in this way. So I'm so sorry. Were you there when that happened, when they took her off the machine?
Yeah.
The hospital did allow us to be in there, and allowed the grandkids to come say goodbye and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Did you? Procession of little kids all just saying their goodbyes to their grandma that they loved so much.
And it was very fast. Like, we got the call Friday morning saying, "Hey, we're going to take mom off the ventilator this morning in 2 hours." And so I barely even had time to get clothes on and go. And it was very quick and very forced.
There wasn't any reason either. Like you said, she wasn't like declining. So I don't know why they made everything so like, we have to do this right now.
Yeah. It sounds very, very in line.
It was like a factory.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about saying goodbye and the family members around what happened? How did that go? Tell me a little bit about how the family perceived the situation and actually saying goodbye. How did that go?
It was just very horrible, because there was all of my children, and we all just went into the room, and we all just kind of put our hands on her, and they turned off all the machines, and she kind of sputtered a couple minutes later, and we all just cried for a little while, and then that was it. It was like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Then we were whisked out, and then it was just I don't know, just nothingness. I don't even know. We left the hospital. We were just confused, didn't know what to do.
What do you say to 6 kids that just lost their grandmother? They left forever,
Absolutely. What do you say to 6 kids who needlessly just lost their grandmother? And, you had mentioned that they had given her remdesivir. I'm sure at that point, you guys, a lot of the time they didn't tell the family that they were on those kind of drugs, Ativan and remdesivir and things like this. And so a lot of the time they were given at different points in the night when people weren't aware, and they would decline overnight and appear to be doing well in the daytime. And it's just, so when you had mentioned all of a sudden, you don't know why all of a sudden, it happened so fast. A lot of the time as they were approaching those time limits, 14 days or the certain time limits, that, it was increased, or it almost appeared that there was certainly a plan to administer those drugs at higher doses. And some of the folks I know in Michigan, if you look at how many doses of fentanyl they were given, it's just 200 doses or something, really. So it's really just unfortunate to hear the story, to hear about the grandkids. What did you realize? At what point did you realize that the point in your mind you were like, oh my gosh, the hospital killed my mom? When did that happen for you, that you realized what had happened?
Probably not for a while afterwards, because I was just so
in shock,
covered in grief, and just
shocked. We're just trying to get through things.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be harder for my kids, but then it ended up being harder for me because it was my mom. I think I was just in denial for a few months. I also had a 6-month-old baby, and so I was nursing and stuff like that. So I was just very busy and very just sad. It was probably about a year and a half later when I first started hearing reports about the remdesivir and connections. So it was a while later.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
then I started putting the dots together and we kind of just talked about it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember when she told me and she was like, "Hey, I just saw this about the remdesivir," and I'm like, "Makes complete sense."
Everything started to line up in your mind, right? When you heard other people's stories that sounded just like yours,
Yeah.
it's just so unfortunate, especially when you had asked the doctor and he left the room for something that could have helped her. Ivermectin. You were right. Your instincts were right. You did everything right. And you should have been able to trust these professionals, right? These hospitals that have degrees and have been studying for years. Why is it you that are the one that have to say, hey, give her the stuff that's going to help her? It's just insane.
So on a personal note, it's always been me because I have had births at hospitals and they always fought me because I wanted to be natural. I've never had a positive experience with the hospital. They don't listen to the patient. They don't care about you and they hurt you on purpose. That is my experience with every hospital pretty much that I've come in contact with. So I'm not shocked actually, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I should
And
be. It should be more shocking that doctors and nurses treat people so horrifically and do things for profit.
Yeah.
yeah. And it sounds like you've done some research since then, learning a bit more about what's actually happened in the hospitals to date. They're still giving remdesivir, by the way. Even a couple weeks ago, we helped save a 2-year-old that was going to be given remdesivir. So it's still happening. And so your story is so important because we need things to change, right? We need to take back care of our hospital systems. You should be able to go to a medical professional if you need and get help, and not be afraid to do that. So I'm interested to hear a little bit now. We spoke about the hospital and you spoke about your large family, the family that was so very close to your mother, who is such the glue and the light of your family. Can you tell us a little bit about now the impact that this has happened, that this death that they killed? How did it impact your family in many ways?
It's had a massive impact. She was heavily involved with all of her grandchildren and her family. She was the backbone behind all of it. And since then, the family's been shattered. I don't really have contact with my sisters and my brother, and my stepdad remarried 6 months after her death. And so he cut me out of his life. And so I feel very alone. My children, I feel very alone and abandoned. And we don't have her light anymore. And it's really sad.
It is. And your children as well now are, they their grandmother's not there due to this, and what a tragedy. If you were to think of a favorite memory that you had with her, maybe both of you, do you have one that stands out that you'd like to share? Just a memory with her?
Collecting rocks. She was a huge rock collector. We would go to the mountains and go everywhere and all over the place, and she would find rocks not in national parks. She would do it completely legal. She was very very good at, she was very by the book, but she made rock gardens out of her rocks, and she just loved rocks. Those are some of my favorite memories. We went on vacation specifically to get rocks sometimes. So
Yeah. And if she were here, or if she, what final message would either you or what do you think that she would like to pass on to all the listeners that are hearing her story and your story and having this terrible tragedy? What would she like to have those listeners hear?
She would probably want people to stand up for themselves and advocate and be healthy.
Be healthy. Yeah. Wow. What a legacy to pass on. And it sounds like she's passed it on to you to carry on, her light into, to help pass it into, help pass it on, right? The gift of love and throughout everyone. At this time, I just want to say, how did you hear about the Betrayal Project USA? Can you tell a little bit about that before we wrap here? Can you tell a little bit about how you found us here?
Well, I was scrolling Facebook and I clicked on the link and I read some of the stories and they sounded really similar to mine. And so I put my victim impact statement in, and I think that's what it's called. And so now here I am. I just want to help people and advocate for truth.
Thank you. And I'm so glad that both Braden and Amber, both that you guys have found us. And at this time, I'd just like to, again, thank you so much for having the courage to come tell your story, share your story and pass it on to other people. Now that you know the truth and you've put things together, you can now share. I just, again, would recommend, if you can, share the story when we finally post it up. You're going to find it at betrayalprojectusa.org. If anybody is listening to this now, we have many volunteers that will that can reach out and schedule interviews just like this one. So if you know anybody who this has happened, if you hear another similar story, please send them to check us out to have them tell their story with us. Please share these stories, because we need to raise awareness on what is happening in our hospitals and to get us accountability for these terrible crimes that have happened. So again, I thank you both from the bottom of our hearts for taking the time. We hope that over time, that your family can carry on and find some of those memories that you shared. And again, please, thank you very much. Please, if you could share these stories, we would be really grateful. So thank you guys for your time today. Okay.
Thank you.